Hi everyone, welcome back and happy Friday. So I got another email that came across my desk that I am going to respond to here in this video. So this person's email actually came across my desk last night, 9 o'clock p.m. The title of the video is, "When does spanking for discipline cross over into fetish?" I just find that this email is just interesting how random it is, considering I just made a video talking about white men's fascination with BBC, and then we just crossed over into talking about something totally unrelated. But okay, here we go. So this person says, "Hi Danielle, I've recently been catching up on your videos, your previous YouTube videos about BDSM and how you present it to possibly having to do with childhood, teenage discipline. I have to stop there. Discipline or abuse? There is a difference. And I kind of it really bothers me, and I have to give a warning, you guys, because this video is going to be pretty heavy. The things discussed here in this video are heavy. And so we're going to take our time with this video here, this topic, because it hits home. Obviously, it's personal, and I don't mind divulging and sharing some of my personal life experiences with you guys. You guys know I'm going to be very transparent in my self-disclosure sometimes. So let's go for it. Okay, he says, "Anyway, I ran across this video and felt I asked your opinion on it. As someone who also grew up in the South with 5 siblings and was whooped with switches till the age of 15, I just don't understand how anybody could get excited by such material." So you recognize this person saying that he grew up in the South with 5 siblings who was whooped, and he spelled whooped in all cap, right? With switches till the age of 15 years old. It's clear that he recognizes that something is not quite right with that, right? He goes and says, "I just don't understand how anybody could get excited about such material." So you recognize that something isn't quite right. But then the preceding sentence, you refer to it as discipline. I guess it's depending on who you ask, right? Of course, any parent is going to say, "Oh, it's discipline." A lot of parents that abuse children actually deny it, that it's abuse. It's abusive. And I actually have a few parents on my caseload that I see now, parents, women, whose children have been removed from their custody because of abuse. It just kind of bothers me. I have to stop right here, because it just kind of bothers me how people within the Black community make light of this issue. And I've talked about this in previous videos, as he mentioned. I've talked about this before. So this isn't a new topic necessarily. I've mentioned this before. I talked about BDSM Spankings. I talked about my own experience and growing up in a household where my mom was a very strict disciplinarian. I've shared my perspective on it, and also I've responded to posts that were made on social media. People were commenting, basically making light of the issue of abuse. And so I take it very seriously, and I make sure that I distance myself from people it's a game, because it's not a game. It's not a laughing matter. It's serious, right? Okay. This type of scenario was usually a monthly occurrence within my household. Shit, that shit was more like daily. Like, we could get it at any time, right? By the way, you don't have to make a video post about it. Just wanted some professional feedback on the issue. No, I like coming to you guys making videos on topics of interest to me, especially if I can relate to it, especially if I can speak from my own personal experience. So I'm taking my time with this because, yes, I do identify as an adult woman who have experienced a history of, I would say, physical abuse. Now, it's touchy. I'm going to set this aside for now. I get it. It's touchy because I grew up in a household shared with other siblings, right? I have a sister who is 3 years older than I am. And of course, if you were to speak with her, she would have a different perspective or opinion on the matter, right? And it bothers me, right? Now, you guys know that I did write my autobiography, American Dreamer, back in 2009. I was going to release it in 2010. But it got put to a halt. It got put to a halt because I got shamed by family members, right? I'm not really going to go too much in depth with that. But it kind of goes along with this whole idea of people denying. Right? I get it's one thing to not involve family business out there, right? It's another thing to completely just like one-on-one, like it's just us, right? It's not the world. One-on-one conversations with family members to deny it, like that's very offensive, and it's personal to me. That's why I'm taking my time with it, because it's very personal, and I know what I lived through. I know what I went through. But yeah, I think that it's a bit unnerving, and it's unsettling. It's just, how can you deny it? But I understand. I get it though, because take my family out of the scenario, right? And looking at the black community in general. I mean, there's a general consensus amongst a lot of black people who really don't look at childhood spankings or childhood discipline as abuse per se, right? And I guess it depends, but you have to like be very specific and detailed about it. We have to really go in there and to really dissect, okay, what really happened? What is this, right? Some people say, oh, if it's just for the purpose of discipline, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not about the purpose of it, it's about how it's administered. That's what makes it abuse, right? And I must say this, I mean, some of you guys already know, but I have to say this, that when I grew up, my mom did not play the radio. Anybody who knows my mom know. Like, they know the truth, right? Anybody who truly knows me know the truth. They know. Especially my siblings from my dad, right? My dad's side. Because they also shared the same household as I did growing up. So they witnessed this themselves, right? It was abuse, yo. Abuse is abuse. Just call it like it is. People want to protect, the parent. Oh, like, no, you shouldn't say that. What about me? What about the child who went through that? The child who suffered that. So many black children suffer it. And they're like, oh, well, it's just to make you better. It's just to make you a stronger person. Of course it made me strong. But we can't overlook like the harmful effects of it. My same sister who denies that it was abuse, suffered regressions in her developmental milestones. Like, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to like really get into it, because some black people themselves can't even comprehend the negative effects of it, the psychological, physiological effects of physical abuse. We ain't even talking about psychological, emotional abuse. And I think denying that a person abused someone could be a form of psychological abuse in and of itself, right? But there are consequences for this. Like, I work in the field of mental health, and so you can see, like, it's very noticeable the effects of physical abuse within children. You can tell when a child has been physically abused, yo. Like I said to my sister, she dealt with her own shit. I'm not about to go into that because this is about me. I'm gonna speak from my own personal experience. But yes, I suffered effects growing up, and I talk about my experience. I talk about dealing with panic attacks, having panic disorder, not really formally being diagnosed with panic disorder, because I was taken to the emergency room and they didn't know what the hell was happening, and tests were run and the doctor said, oh, everything is fine with her. But me later coming to an understanding of what panic disorder is, what panic attacks are, like, I realized, like, yo, I suffered from panic attacks as a child. So when a person comes to me and says that it doesn't have an effect, it's just like, whoa, 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 it does. Now, I'm not saying that, okay, children just can get away with murder, you just let them run free and do whatever they want. No. Yeah, you can implement discipline. But the type of discipline that I went through as a child, that I know, that I remember, no. Okay, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, right? But when I was growing up, my mom's choice weapons, and I do call it choice weapons, were extension cord, an extension cord, right? That you plug into the wall, that you plug other cords into, right? That was one. Cable cord, that you plug into a TV, the round circular cable cord, and a belt. That's what we got beat with. And it wasn't just, okay, you get a beating with those. It was stripped down, take off your clothes. So I think it was a whole psychological process that was happening, right? Just feeling disempowered and laying across the bed. And when black people hear things like this, they laugh. It's like, oh, we all went through that. We all got beat. We all got our ass beat. We all got the shit knocked out of us and this, that, and the other. And it's just, it's become so normal, so common that it's nothing. I'm like, are you kidding me? No, you can't be so desensitized to it to the point where you're minimizing the effect, the harmful effects of it, the seriousness of it, because this is generational fucking issue. And even my mom will admit that her mom beat the shit out of her, and she complained about it. So it's like, okay, if you're complaining, you're speaking from your own personal experience about what your mother did to you, and it's not to say we don't love our parents. We're not questioning that. Of course we love our parents. Of course I love my mom. It's not about questioning that, but it's just about looking at a specific issue here, right? In a way that people parent and discipline their children. As it relates to a fetish of mine, BDSM, because someone sent me an email wanting to know, how can we relate the two, or how does childhood discipline, which is really abuse, but let's just stick with, let's just be safe, discipline, evolve to a fetish of BDSM spankings, which I've publicly admitted that I do like BDSM spankings. I feel like even that is like a soft, like these soft terms. Childhood discipline, that's a soft way of saying, that's a nice way of saying freaking abuse. Or BDSM spankings, I feel like that's even a soft version of what I actually like. So I'm going to get into that here in this video. No holds barred. I have to keep it 100 with y'all, right? But yeah, it had effects on me. You know, the panic attacks. Like, y'all gotta go back and watch my other video I made about surviving panic disorder. I'm not really gonna go into what that looked like. But yeah, I had panic attacks even through like adolescent, college, and young adulthood. I've learned to manage my anxiety very well. But I suffered from that. And I'm pretty sure it was linked to those freaking beatings. It's just the way my mom interacted. Like, when I think back to how I was raised, my upbringing, I can't recall my mom being nurturing in a motherly sense, in terms of like, you know, like affection and you know, caressing my face or kissing. Like, I can't recall that. What I recall in terms of my mom being a mother is discipline. That's the only thing I recall. Just being like hard-nosed, disciplined, do what I say. Like, she didn't tolerate shit. Okay? Like, nothing. My mom did not play the radio. We would get beat like for the, I feel like it was the smallest thing, right? You know, I give this example of one of the things I remember, like my mom just didn't play. And me and my sister would joke around in terms of like how we would enunciate words. And I remember I said, we both were like, oh, it's 7:30, right? And my mom was like, that what you say? 7:30? No, it's 7:30. You say 7:30, and it's like something that small would lead to an ass whooping. And it was a whole ritual. The ass whoopings wasn't just, okay, get a shoe, pop you, or get a belt, all right, pop you, or a switch. As he says, like he was hit with switches. Now, switches I know can hurt, right? But nah. This was take off your clothes and lay across the bed. It was a whole ritual. And then from that, yes, there were whelps left. And my mom would threaten me and my sister to say, all right, you want to call HRS? Go ahead, call HRS. They're going to come and they're going to pick your ass up and do you worse. The white man going to do you worse than I just did your ass. So call them. I want you to call. Like, yo, we're not even going to really go into that. So, yeah, there were effects that happened that I know impacted me, right, in a negative way. I was saying how you can tell when a child has suffered like from physical abuse. I work actually extensively with children in foster care. That was one of my first jobs after I graduated college at a residential treatment facility. It's just, you can tell abused children. It's all over their body, their demeanor, their body language. Very hypervigilant. And they have like this exaggerated startle response, you know. And I just realized, like, yo, I have it. And you know how I realized it just recently, yo. Sometimes, like, the most subtle, smallest things we don't quite notice. But it was pointed out to me. Not blatantly, though. It was just kind of like an interaction I had at work. You guys know that I'm trained to become a psychologist. I'm in my pre-doc internship here in New York City. I work at a clinic. Very high volume clinic here in Manhattan. And before I see my clients, you know, for evals at the clinic, we have an assistant that, you know, let us know your client is in the waiting room, your client is here. And so I'm working in my office doing notes or something like that. And the assistant, the office assistant or secretary comes in, right, opens the door, and I'm like, I jump. And she's like, she laughed like the way I responded, but for me, I didn't look at it like I jumped. Like, it was such a natural reaction. That's just usually how I respond, right? Like if someone calls my name or someone comes in, I don't look at it like I jump. But I see from the outside looking in, she looked at it like that because she laughed. She was like, whoa. Like her reaction said everything. Like, chill out. Like, it's just your client, or it's just me letting you know your client. But I don't know. That's just my reaction. It's like a startle response, and not only that, like the way I respond, like I usually just jump up to things. So if someone like calls me or something like that, or says something like I'm quick to respond, and I feel like I've been trained to be that way. And oftentimes as adults, we don't realize like how much of who we are as an adult was shaped in the formative years of our life. The first 5 years of our life, or let's say first 8 years, as they say sometimes. But that's a very like important, critical moment of our development, how we were raised. People like they don't see the connection. Like, it's like they don't even really take the time to even reflect on like how they were raised. Oftentimes it's just like, okay, I think oftentimes Black people try to like brush over it or kind of fantasize, kind of paint like this idealistic view of how they were raised as if like everything was good and peaches and cream. And yes, I can reminisce about the good old days too. There are great times. Like my childhood, if I could say for myself, my childhood overall was pretty good, but I have to admit, like, yeah, it was points. It was points there. And I can say it's good because we all have a way of kind of positive reframing negative experiences in our life to paint a good picture. So I can easily do that, but I have to admit, like, yeah, there's a connection. Like, yeah, I link my attraction, my fetish of spankings back to that. How else can you explain it, right? And I want to get into that in a minute. How else can you explain it? So yeah, I realized that, like, even when it comes, I think it's mainly so like authority or just like in interactions with people, like I respond, like I'm kind of jumpy sometimes, right? And even in supervision meetings, it's just like I'm very agreeable. Why am I such an agreeable person? Like I agree with everything. I'm very agreeable, and I think, yes, a big part of my personality has been shaped by how I was raised. It's just, it is what it is, yo. Parents don't realize the bearing that they have on their children's personality. Yes, one may say that a child's personality is biological, it's something that could be inherited, or it's just something that is innate, something that they're born with. But I think a big portion of it is nurture, how they were raised, and it is what it is. I was a great student, though. I was a straight A student. So it didn't negatively impact my grades. I think my mom would take credit for, oh, I disciplined her. She's well disciplined, well trained. Like she used to actually brag about how well trained we were as kids growing up, and her interactions with her coworkers or her peers and stuff like that. But yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Like the whelps, yo. It was just, it got to a point. Okay, so I lived with my mom and my dad from birth till 12 years. My mom and my dad were together, we were all living together. I call it a happy family, right? At least I thought it was, right? And then when I was 12, my mom, took me and my sister abruptly and uprooted us, and we moved to live with her mother in St. Augustine, Florida, which is like 30 minutes outside of Jacksonville. And I lived with my mom and her mom and my sister, my aunt, for 4 years. I still had connection to my dad, though. I always have connection to my dad. I'm a daddy's girl. It was just like, that was like, no, the formidable thing to do, to take me away from my dad. So it just, it couldn't go down like that. So of course I still had contact with my dad. I would still see my dad, visit my dad. My mom and my dad would hand me off to each other, like, here's your daughter, here's your daughter, here's your daughter, here's your daughter. So I went through that for 4 years, between the age of 12 to 16 years old. Then at age 16 I'm just like, hell no. This shit got to stop. And yes, I was still getting beatings through the age of 16. I think he said 15 in the email here. But he was getting beat with a switch. I'm just like, switch versus, he said switches till the age of 15. Switches compared to extension cord. Do y'all need to see what an extension cord looks like? Do I need to pull one out and show y'all? I think I got one right here. This is an extension cord, okay? This is an extension cord. Imagine this on your flesh, yo. This thing is thick. Imagine this thing on your flesh, right? Like, we had to strip down to our underwear, and this was before puberty for me, right? Because I was a late bloomer, so I didn't get my period, I think, until age 16, I think. But yeah, at that point, at 16 years old, I was like, yeah, you know, you got breasts. I got breasts. I already got my period. I'm not about to be stripping down, laying across no freaking bed. So this is the straw that fucking broke the camel's back, yo. I was in high school. I was in my sophomore year. And you know how they have this thing, well, no horse playing in the hall, right? Now, like I said, I was an upstanding student. Always been, yo. Like, with a mom like my mom don't play. She never played the radio. So I'm in the hallway, headed to my class, and there was an upperclassman, a guy. And he was horse playing with me in the hallway, teasing with me, flirting, whatever. I think he hit me, and I always had this thing like, yo, you hit me, I'm gonna hit your ass back. Still to this day, I'm hitting your ass back. And so, I think he hit me, and I reached out, and I like threw something at him or something like that. But the dean didn't notice him, and even if the dean did, like, the dean just told him to go to his class. He's an upperclassman. He's like on his way out the door. I mean, he's a senior in high school. Didn't care about him. Let him go to class. Call me into the office. And then call my mother. And that is freaking, yo, you don't call my mom at her job. That was like a big no-no. They called my mom. I'm just like, I begged, like, please don't call my mom, yo. Like, you can write a letter, but don't call my mom while she at work, because that's gonna escalate the situation, you know. And my mom, like, she's the type of person, you know how they say people catastrophize shit? Yo, that's my mom to the 10th. Like, everything is magnified, and you wonder where I get anxiety from as a kid and panic attacks? Everything is intense, right? With my mom. So she takes off of work. Wasn't necessary. Takes off of work and comes and picks me up from school early. And on the way home, she just, going out. Blah, 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 blah. I don't even see how my dad was married. I feel for my dad sometimes. I don't see how he was married to her as long as he was. And my mom still carries my dad's last name. We all have the same last name. Just like, está loco. So she just going in on the way home, just going in, just like, I'm gonna beat your ass. Like, and my mom like, okay, we'll see. I have my whole mind made up, like, no, this is gonna be the final straw. Like, this is it. I can't take no more. Like, enough is enough, right? So we get to the house. And she goes straight to her bedroom to get the weapons. And she's expecting the whole protocol of me just submitting, following through, laying down on the bed, take off your clothes. Like, yo, I'm 16 at this age. I'm 16 years old, a sophomore in high school. So, yo, something went off on me. I snapped. And I took a beeline to the front door. I'm going down the street, yo, walking as fast as I can. She come behind me, yo. She comes in behind me. I'm gonna get to y'all comments. I'm not ignoring y'all. Y'all know how my mind is. I have to stay focused, right? I don't want to forget my train of thought. But I will come back, and I'm definitely going to read your comments. And so I took a beeline to the front door, walked as fast as I could down the street. She coming behind me. Danielle, come back down here. Come back. Where you going? She caught up with me. I let her catch up with me, right? And she is trying to negotiate to get me to come back. And she's like, where you going? I was like, I don't know. Honestly, I didn't know where I was going. I'm just like, I'm getting the hell away from here. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm getting away from here, right? And so she was, trying to negotiate with me to come back. And she was like, all right, well, I'm not going to beat you. I'm just going to, give you a few lickings on your hand, hit you on your hand for a few times, and that's it. And I'm just like, oh, gosh. I went back. I took the licks. I'm like, okay. But I had my mind made up. It was just like, I can't do this no more, right? So basically, After that, make a long story short, I reached out to my dad, typed up a letter, yo, and I'm a great fucking ass writer, yo. I wrote him a letter, pouring out my heart, let him know my experience living with my mom, and I mailed it off to him. He gets the letter, he reads it, he calls me immediately, right? His first reaction is, oh my gosh, you write so well. I'll never forget, y'all. That's the first thing he pointed out. Because I guess it had been a while, obviously, since he actually seen, like, my work, my academic work, you know, because I had been living with my mom from age 12 to 16, even though I still would visit him and spend the weekends and summers and stuff like that. It was more like he didn't really get that, like, that intimate. Some of the time that we would, because I spent a lot of time with my dad when we all lived together, right, growing up from birth to 12. So my dad was like heavily involved, like, in my life, and especially my academics. So he just was like kind of missed out on part of that. And for him to see a letter that I had written, and to see, you know, obviously, like, the progress I had made in academia, like, I think he was impressed by that. But then he got to the meat of the letter, and, you know, it shocked him, and I think he was hurt by it. And he agreed. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna come get you. So me and my dad plotted my escape. We plotted my escape behind my mom's back. I can laugh. Some people may say, oh, Danielle is a bitch. I'm pretty sure, like, my family members, especially my sister, because my sister is just like she's a, what do you call it, a mama's daughter or whatever, right? Like, I'm my dad's child. And so, of course, you're going to take, you know, my mom's side. And I'm pretty sure a lot of other family members who may watch this, they don't like me. I don't care. Listen, I'm that child, yo. I am that child that you're not going to treat me any kind of way. I think any child, once they're cognizant and they're aware, like, wrong is wrong. Wrong is wrong. And I was that child, right? And so me and my dad plotted my escape behind my mom's back. And he picked me up when she was at work. She didn't know. And the school semester was over. So this was like the end of the school year. And my mom get home from work. And of course my cousins are there. My mom's sister kids or whatever. And I guess she asked them, like, where Danielle went? And they told her she went with her dad. And then she calls me. Now, back then, we only had landlines, right? House phones. And so the house phone ring at my dad's house. I pick up the phone. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you were leaving. I was like, yeah, I'm at my dad's house, clearly. And she was like, oh, you decided to go there for the summer? I'm like, oh, this ain't for the summer. I'm just like, this is for good. Like, I am not coming back. She was in shock, obviously. Like, how could you do this? Like, you know your daughter's smart as fuck. That's how I can do this. But I just was over it, right? And she was in shock, and then she was trying to negotiate with me. She's like, oh, well, you know, your dad, he's not going to do the prom thing with you. He's not going to buy your prom dress. That was bullshit. Like, if I wanted a prom dress, my dad gave me the fucking world, yo. My dad gave me anything. But she was just trying to find things to manipulate me into believing that my dad wouldn't. And basically, you can tell she didn't know me that well, because that's not important to me, right? What was important to me was that you don't put your hands on me and find a different way to discipline me. And not only that, like, the incident that triggered this whole reaction was, I was innocent. I didn't do any fucking thing. But to believe a school administrator, fucking white school administrator, over your own black daughter, that was a hurt on top of hurt. And so I was just like, nah, I'm done. I didn't care about the negotiations of fucking prom. I didn't even go to prom, by the way. I didn't. Just wasn't my thing. But I was like, I don't care about that. And so she just broke down, yo, on the phone. And when I say I had no empathy whatsoever, I had no empathy. I just couldn't find the empathy in my heart. Like, why should I feel bad for you when you've been beating the shit out of my ass the whole time, right? I can't find I didn't find the empathy. So that was that. I never went back to my mom's house to live necessarily. I mean, of course I went back to visit, of course. So I went off, I graduated high school. I lived with my dad for the last 2 years of my high school. Graduated, went off to college. My mom was there, support me in orientation. Like, my mom always been there. So don't get it mistaken, like, no, I don't hate my mom necessarily, but I did have hate in my heart towards my mom. Like, I will admit, growing up, I felt hatred. Like, I hated her guts, yo. Honestly, that there were times I wish she would get in a car accident and die on her way home from work. From those beatings. It's just the beatings, y'all. I just hated that. I dreaded that shit, yo. So that was growing up, right? Fast forward till today. I'm an adult. To answer this person's question, who asks about what is the link, right? Going back to the email that was sent that prompted this video. And this, I can go on and on with this topic because I just have so much to say and so many angles to come at this topic from, which I find it interesting that my therapist, right? Because, part of becoming a clinical psychologist, we also have to see a psychologist. We have to go through our own therapy. Obviously, makes sense, right? So I did that back in LA, and I chose to do my therapy with a psychoanalyst. Now, I don't know if you guys know about psychoanalysts, but they're like the cream of the crop when it comes to therapy. They're the cream of the crop. And they kind of go deep. Right? They attack issues that you're dealing with in the present from more of a dynamic perspective to go deep back into your history, your upbringing, right? Now, she didn't go that deep. She didn't go that far back historically, but she did go deep in terms of her way of analyzing my proclivity towards the BDSM lifestyle. And I remember, I never forget this, y'all. One of her interpretations, she was like, "Oh, so you are willing to submit to a man in exchange for him taking care of you?" Yeah, and when she said it, I'm like, hold up. You got me all mixed up right now. She's a white woman, by the way. But she's pretty skilled at what she does. Like, she's like on point. Some therapists, they say the right things and the time they might be on point. But of course, like me in my nature, like, I'm like, nah, no. Of course there's going to be a defense there because first of all, I don't want to change that aspect of who I am. That's me, and I accept that aspect of myself. So I didn't go to therapy to change that. I mean, I went to therapy obviously because it was mandated, right? I mean, of all students in PhD programs trained to become psychologists, it's mandated. So I went for that reason, but also, I mean, therapy is a good thing just to see what it's like on the other side of the table and just to kind of gain an awareness of yourself. I mean, it's no surprise I chose to study psychology. Granted, my initial major in college was computer science, and I changed it. I think I do 1 or 2, maybe 2 semesters as a computer science major. Took enough computer programming classes. I was bored out of my freaking mind. So I got depressed. I was like, this shit, nah. I could do it, but it got redundant. Just, no. I would rather do something more exciting, like working with people besides sitting behind a freaking computer screen and building programs and doing things like that. So I ended up changing my major. But it's a reason why, like, I'm drawn to the field of psychology because I have a fascination for understanding why, the motivations for behavior, and just breaking down the why, the how, and being able to manipulate behavior. And once I feel like, okay, I got a good understanding of what's going on with me, I just felt obligated to give back. So this person is wanting to know, how does BDSM relate to my interests? And I'm just like, when you think about it, right? Think about it. And Also, he included a link to a video. I didn't even click, before I even clicked on the link, right? I knew it was porn. I'm just like, why the fuck is he sending me this porn video? You can just read the freaking link and tell. Ebony spanked. I'm like, yeah, that's some porn shit, right? But nothing against porn, especially BDSM porn, because I think that's part of what kind of drew me. But I wouldn't say that was like the driving factor, right? The driving factor, I think, was something that obviously was embedded in my DNA based on my childhood experiences, right? It just shaped my neurobiology of who I am and how I understand what love feels like and looks like. Now, for all y'all judgmental people, y'all can exit this video, but for people who are curious and open to understanding behavior, human behavior, my behavior, then continue to watch. So it's interesting that he included this link, because I do remember, yes, there was a period of time where I would be drawn to looking at BDSM videos of women in bondage and getting spanked or beaten. Actually, beaten is a better word, but spank is like a softer, I feel like it's just, I don't know, it's very gentle. Spanked, cross the lap spank. Those aren't the kind of spankings that I like necessarily. Like, I like beatings, and there's no surprise, right? So when you think about it, right, I'm gonna think this thing through with you guys. When you think about it, yes, there are women who like to be spanked. There are women who like to be dominated by their man. I think that's kind of like a natural inclination when you think about it, just for a woman to be dominated. I think we just have an innate desire, you know, in us as women. Now, when you take into account feminism, you know, and all these other movements that are happening, Me Too, you know, women's rights, then yeah, with the socialization of what's happening in our society, then yeah, you're going to have women like, hell nah, I don't want no man telling me what to do, dominate me, da da da. But I just think that there's a part of us within our femininity that we welcome a man doing certain things, like certain activities like that, right? So I think part of it is a natural inclination driven by, obviously, my own childhood experiences, because like I said, yeah, you got women who, yeah, you got women who like spankings, right? But beatings, like, I take it to a whole nother level, y'all. Spankings, no, I don't like spanking. How I see a spanking, let me define it. Okay, spanking is just like, okay, you know, lay across a man's lap, he pulled down the panties, and a lot of men do it, you know, with their hand, open hand, bare hand, right? Bare hand to her bare bottom. Spank, okay? But for me, I like beatings. And going into a little bit about my last relationship that I was in, which began back in 2014. It ended December 2017. It was like a mutual thing. Like, it had to end. It was kind of more like me. I wanted it to end, but he knew that it was. It's just it was toxic, right? And I have to give a fair warning that yes, there is a fine line when it comes to these activities practiced within BDSM. The lines can get pretty blurred, right? And that's what happened in my last relationship. She got out of hand, yo. Now, I would say he was naturally a dominant man from New York City, Jamaican guy, ex-military. That's my alarm. All of that speaks dominance and alpha and all of that, right? So he had all of that. That's what attracted me to him, and we both fell in love very quickly. But he didn't know really much about BDSM, so I'm the one who introduced BDSM to him. And I did it through my fictional story that I wrote, autobiographical fictional story called Dying to Submit, which is on my website. Some of you guys probably had a peek at it. If you haven't, feel free to go feel free to indulge yourself. But it's a story that I wrote based on my own personal experiences, kind of sprinkled with some fiction and some fantasy. I let him read it when we first met, and yeah, he was drawn in. It was all like, he connected to it. He was like, oh yeah, this is me. Like, oh yeah, this is simple. I can do this, right? I was like, but yeah, he was a sweet guy because he also, you know, was drawn into like just learning about me altogether, reading my autobiography, because at that time my autobiography was written. I mean, it was complete. My autobiography been complete since 2010. I met him in 2014. So yeah, he got a chance to read my autobiography too, which I think he's probably the only one who actually read it from front cover to back cover. I haven't published it yet. It's coming, y'all. It's coming. It's just I have to do things in a certain timing, right? Because this shit is serious, yo. When I was releasing excerpts from my autobiography on my website back in 2009, between 2009 and 2010, of course, some family members saw it. I'm not gonna say who, because I'm a person like, yo, I like peace. I have to go out there and see after this video what's going on in my neighborhood, right? So of course I like peace, right? And I'm not really into like the horoscopes or astrology, but they say Libras, which I am, have been known to seek balance, and just like we don't like to get into fights and drama. Like, I'm not that kind of person, right? If anything, I would rather work shit out with people. That's just me. So of course I didn't write my autobiography to start shit with nobody, but people can take something that you do and twist it, right? And so from me posting excerpts from my autobiography on my website, a family member saw it, and she went back and told another family member, and then they threatened lawsuit by saying, oh, that's how people get sued. Word got back to me like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay, I see I have to approach this, which I was gonna, of course, de-identify everyone in the book. That's common sense. All writers know about that. But it made me hold off on releasing it, because I was going to release it back in 2010, and here we are in 2021. So we're talking about 11 years, yo, of fucking material that's going to make that book a lot much better. But going back to that relationship, right, my last relationship, that was very, very intense. And he, after reading, you know, my book, Dying to Submit, he was drawn in. And I remember, like, it was a mutual thing, right? So for me, and I have to say this, I think that it's okay. I'll be the first one to say, it's okay to practice spankings in relationships as long as it's between two mutually consenting, or it could be 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, or however many people are involved, between mutually consenting adults. It's okay. It's not harming anyone, right? I mean, there are all kind of websites, videos that talk about safety tips for engaging in some of these activities practiced within BDSM, because yeah, shit can get out of hand. Yeah, if you don't have the safe word, so to speak. But I didn't really use a safe word. That shit sound kind of corny, safe word. But anyway, so yeah, I remember, like, you know, asking my my partner, like, yeah, how it would, this is how it would go down. I would be like, I would ask him, right? He wouldn't do it. Like, he wasn't a kind of like partner that would just do it like spontaneously necessarily, until it kind of got to that point, unfortunately. But I would ask him. So I asked him like, oh, I want to spank it. And that's another thing. Going back to what my psychologist said back in LA, she was like, oh, you are willing to submit to a guy in exchange for him taking care of you. And yeah, I wanted to address it. It's just like, taking care of me, submission. But then on the upside, because it's always good and bad to everything, right? So that's how I'm the kind of person, I always see the good in everything, right, alongside the bad. So the good, to her interpretation of that, is that it made me, because I had to reflect, and it made me really value my submission. Like, it increased that stock tenfold, right? The stock of submission, because submission is a gift, right? So it really made me appreciate it even more, and not be so easy to just share it with anyone, you know. So I'm very guarded, I think, when it comes to dating. Probably too guarded. Very guarded, right? Especially in the beginning phases. Probably why I'm so single. I don't know. I have many theories on why I'm so single, and I'm about to be 38 years old. So that's the upside to it, right? It did give me a greater appreciation for just submissions. Like, damn, that shit gotta be valuable for her to, like, the way she said it such in a very convicting way, yo. I felt like, god damn, that shit pierced. That shit hurt. But then I felt like she missed me. And I did make a video about this when I was seeing her in therapy. I felt like, yo, because I think I titled the video, my psychologist or psychoanalyst is trying to heal me or change me, correct my BDSM lifestyle or whatever. I forget what I titled it, but something along those lines. Yeah, like, I don't want to change that aspect of me. I don't want to be healed. Like, I'm not giving that up for anyone. That's who I am. That's what I want. And I know it's linked back to my childhood. I know, because I know in terms of the intensity of spankings that I like, it mimics how my mom would do it. So I'm not giving that up. But we didn't go into that, you know, we didn't really go like, I ain't go there with her, like, in terms of talking about like the spankings and stuff like that. But I did tell her about my childhood to a certain extent, but not necessarily about the BDSM spankings that I like. But I just feel like, yeah, she missed me, because it's just like, it's not so much about that. It's just about, like, it's a level of security, I think, that a lot of subs, baby girls, I identify myself as a baby girl, we feel very, like, comforted when a man is providing, obviously, protecting, nurturing, and disciplining. It's just a security. Like, it's just, you feel love, like, you feel owned. And I make this statement to say that being owned is better than being loved. And some people, they just don't get it when I make that post, like, on Facebook. And I've made that post a few times. I don't know. You just have to have my mind. You have to be in the mind of a submissive baby girl to get it. But oh my gosh, it's just ecstasy for me. And so yeah, I would ask him, I want to spank it. And I do kind of get into the baby talk. Like, it's not really an act though. This is real. This is me, right? And some people may call it switching or regressing, I guess, from a regression, developmental or psychological regression. I don't really look at it like that, because I'm like, yo, I'm a woman. I'm a full-blown woman, but at the same time, like, I'm very aware of myself, and I'm aware of when I'm changing, too. But in terms of how it happens, it kind of just happens. Like, it's a dynamic that it just happens, like, when I'm with a guy that I really care about, right? And he's clearly a dom. Now, if he a bitch, nah. You ain't gonna get that little baby girl voice from me. If you a bitch ass nigga, you a bitch ass nigga. You know what I'm saying? But no, if I got feelings for you, and like, yes, trust has been established, like, how I show up is just different. It's different, yo, in relationships. People don't get to see that aspect. I think some of y'all may have, if you were following me back then, because, you know, I did make videos, but not really so much of us. But it came out. It did come out sometimes. Yeah. And so let me go ahead. I know how, the way I tell stories, sometimes I take y'all all around the world before I just get straight to the point. I know. I get it. And so, yeah, I would say in my baby voice, Kenny, I want to spank it. And he gave me what I wanted, right? But it's funny to see how he went about it, like his approach to it initially, because he was kind of reluctant to just give it to the intensity that I wanted. And so, of course, I would disrobe, you know, naked, and lay across the bed. It was just like recreating that experience of being a girl, you know. I just wanted to feel that. And so, he asked me, what you want me to use, and I would say, yeah, your belt. I want you. He had a leather belt. My mom had a leather belt, and I just wanted him to I just wanted to recreate that. And so I liked him a lot because he was just willing to go there with me. A lot of men be like, what the hell? No, some men will give us spankings. Spankings, I feel like spankings is not really BDSM necessarily. That's like vanilla. People do that in vanilla relationships. Vanilla is just another word for like regular relationships, right? Men, they tap their girl in the butt, hit, playful. That's nothing. But in terms of really willing to go there, and I would tell him, I would kind of guide him like harder, and he would go there, because I guess he had to make sure, like, hold on, like, how hard do you want it? And he would go there, and then when it reached to a point where I feel like, all right, we're there, right? I'm like, stop. And he would keep going, he would keep freaking going. I'm like, stop. But that was the whole act, right? It was just like, it was fun. Because it was just like how it was back when I was a little girl. Even if I wanted my mom to stop, she just kept going. She would always say, oh, it hurt me more than it hurt you. Bullshit. Yo, them shits hurt. I ain't even mention, in this video, I've mentioned it before in previous videos, where it was whelps, and we had to wear turtlenecks to hide the whelps when we go to school, shit like that, especially when it's hot. I grew up in Florida. Shit hot as fuck down there, wearing turtlenecks and weather that don't even require you to wear freaking turtlenecks just to hide the whelps and shit like that, But it's not abuse. It's like mix me with that bullshit. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's how I just come to terms with it. And to answer this guy's question who sent me the email, like, how could the discipline turn into how could that evolve into having a fetish? It makes sense though. I don't think people as adults, I don't think we really look at the connection between childhood and adult. It's just we live through childhood, we go to adolescent, adulthood, but we don't really see the connection. We don't really take the time to really think about it. Not even realizing that our childhood is a primer. How you were raised as a child is a primer. The mind, it's so fascinating. I don't think we understand, the fascination of the human mind, the brain. And we do it subconsciously. That's what it is. So subconsciously, most adults enact. First of all, they seek out partners subconsciously that remind them of their parents, the relationship they have with their parents, right? They attract that. Subconsciously, you don't even know you're doing it. You attract people like that. And then you get into these enactments, these interactions with your partner as an adult. That is subconscious though. You ain't even aware that you're doing it, right? But you're doing it. And it springs from how you were raised as a child. Take some time. That's the whole purpose of therapy, because when you got a good therapist, your therapist will go there with you. Your therapist will break it down, and it'll begin to make sense, right? Will dissect all of that shit for you. And so I realized that, and I know that. I mean, I've been through that though, right? For myself, I used to have fantasies, even when I was living in that household as a little girl, I would fantasize just about being with a man who would tie me up and beat me and shit like that. And then, I know it sounds weird saying it, but the hell is really, I gotta go out there and see what's going on, y'all. I don't know what's going on out there, but something going on. And so it felt good, and it's just a release. And yes, even though I would say stop, he would keep going, and then I'm like, all right, stop. And then after it's just that release. And sometimes I would cry, because it was real. The shit it's not playing. It's real. You feel it. It's real. Freaking, it's a real beating, right? Now I wouldn't say like, I would say, yeah, my shit was intense, but comparing, like, my experience, right, with BDSM spankings, and looking at, like, what else is out there in the world, yo, my shit is pale in comparison to what other submissives allow themselves to feel in those kinds of relationships. Like, people, like, a lot of submissives take pride, like, in the whelps, and, like, yo, you really see, like, that shit, it gets, like, it gets intense, right? So I just feel like, let's say, if I had to rate it on a scale from 1 to 10, the level of intensity of the beating in terms of, like, the whelp that is left, and we're talking about, like, as an adult, I would say mine is more like, I would say 5. But what I've seen, like, pictures and stuff of submissives, because they take pride in, like, the whelps and stuff like that, and they take pictures, like, of what it looks like. Yo, I've seen, like, 8s and 9s, bruises, so it's nothing. I'm like, I can't do that because I care about the way I look. So I can't be like, wow, motherfuckers, a bruise up my body like that. But yes, I like the feeling, I like the sensation of it, and I like the way I feel, like, the release. It feels so good. And it's just a psychological thing, and the power exchange. That's what it's really about. Some people who will watch this video are going to be hyper focused on the beating aspect, right? Because it's the most obvious. But then a person with a trained ear will be able to hear what is the true motivating factor, and you'll be able to see and understand that it's really about the power exchange, and the beating is just the mechanism by which one achieves that power exchange. And that power exchange is just so exhilarating, y'all. It's just like, it's hard for me to put into words, but it just feels so good. And it's just like, oh. And then the aftercare of, you know, him just nurturing, comforting, and caressing, and rubbing. And, oh. Alright, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. I gave y'all too much. Alright, I do want to see what you guys wrote. Sorry I didn't address your comments, like, while you wrote them, but y'all know, like, I can get distracted. Dwayne says, that's exactly what it is. People don't want to admit it because it sounds bad. Yeah, abuse is abuse. Whooping a child makes them more sneaky, and eventually they get used to the beatings. Exactly, and they develop an immunity against it too. So for me, I feel like, and I say this often, like, I'm more afraid, like, for people who, like, when it comes to, like, let's say physical altercation or something like that, which that don't really happen. I don't, knock on wood, but I don't like to fight. I can fight though, but I feel for the person who, let's say a person want to fight me, because I have a high fucking tolerance for pain, yo. The way my brain's set up, I've endured so much physical pain. You don't want to fuck with this, y'all. You just don't want to fuck with that shit. But yeah, like, kids, it's bad. And I remember, like, getting my sister's kids, right? The same sister, we grew up in the same household. We do have different fathers though. I'm the only child of my mom and my dad, and so that same sister, like, she got 4 kids, and I remember, like, babysitting her kids, and, like, for whole entire summers and shit. This was, like, when I was in my 20s, right? And she would give me permission to beat her kids, yo. And I tried, because kids can test you, and I get it, but I'm the kind of person, like, I'm gonna have a different approach when it comes to interacting with kids, yo. Everything ain't about discipline. If only my mom understood that, though, because in her household, the way she raised me, everything, it was all about discipline, all about getting a child to do what you say, nothing else, right? And so, yeah, my sister would give me permission to do that to my niece and nephews, and they were all, like, elementary school age. And I tried it. I did get a belt when they misbehaved, and I tried it, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't find in my heart to do it because I felt so bad. Because they were so, like, emotionally reactive. They were just like, no, Gigi, when they started doing that, I dropped the belt. I couldn't do it. I was like, oh my gosh. I almost started crying. I was like, I can't do it, yo. Because it took me back to the pain. That shit is painful, yo. And it's like the physical pain is bad, but it's just the emotional pain too of going through that. And like, I know some people will watch this and they're like, oh, well, everybody get beat and you relate to your experience, but it's just different. Like, until you have really endured what that shit feels like, I feel like people just should keep their mouth closed. Because it's really like, it's fucked up. I remember them days when my friend's mom would whoop him with a bat, goddamn broomstick, throw rocks, bricks, and we would stand there and watch. Yeah, because it's so normal, yo. Yeah, the extension cord sometimes not cool. PTSD all over again. Now my mom never played the radio. That's where the term snatching not in your ass comes from. One thing I can say about Mom was that she defended and rewarded me for kicking ass. When she picked me up from school, she would take me out to eat and discuss it further. For whooping other people's ass, right? Yeah, that sounds better, right? Like, if you get, let's say, as a child, a kid is bullying you. Which I feel like I got bullied because I was skinny. I don't know if y'all saw pictures of me when I was little, but I was fucking skin and bone. I was skinny as shit. Because that was a whole nother thing. Like, I wouldn't eat. I had, like, an eating disorder, yo. Like, I was, like, anorexic. Because I didn't want to eat. Because I was, like, trying to control the way I looked and how much, like, weight I gained. I was obsessed about, like, my body and stuff like that. Which I felt I had control over. Because that's the thing about, when you think about, like, eating disorders, it's really about control. Right? I've mastered the idea of control, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed, but like, yeah, I got that shit. Like, I'm a mastermind when it comes to that. Because that's what it's really about. Like, people have eating disorders and stuff. It's really about control. And the more anorexic they are, is like the more control that they have, but the less control they have. Like, they haven't had control, so that's their way of trying to gain control or regain control. So I went through that as a child. I went through a lot of shit. Thank God. I feel like, and just me coming to an awareness, first of all, being honest about it, because that's where healing comes from. Like, you can't heal what you're not willing to admit. So me always being aware of it, that it was a problem, and admitting to it, and being like so transparent and talking about it. I've always been open about it, yo. Even like in school, I remember like my professors would have us like do essays and shit. My essays would be on my life. I had no problem writing in school because I always had content. I always had motivation material to write from, just from my own life experiences. So that's why I like to write. But as an adult, I spent $20,000 out of pocket to correct my teeth. Dang, what happened with the teeth? Women or myself can appreciate male dominance. Exactly. That's why we get along. I think that's why like, you watch my videos, Sharonda, because I think, we do have that in common. Like, preferring male dominance. Dwayne, you're going to get blocked for calling me a freak. That's another thing. Like, the way people perceive certain activities, I don't like that, honest, and I don't think it's funny either. Like, imagine being called a freak just because you are a human being. How is that freaky? That's like calling me an alien. I'm not an alien, and I'm not a freak. I feel like people say it's freaky because they're not comfortable in their own sexuality, and just because my sexuality could be different than you, it's not freaky to me. That's not freaky. Nothing I said actually here in this video to me is considered freaky. And when I talk about wanting to have like roundtable discussions or just public talks about alternative lifestyles, like, I have to be very meticulous about who I invite, because some people aren't mature enough to have that discussion. And you can tell just based on how the words that you use, right? Labeling things freaky, being judgmental. It's not freaky. I've come across guys on dating sites that have referred to me as that, right? Because I have a hashtag in my profile as one of my interests, BDSM. Like, oh, you are a freak. Because I guess people are misled. BDSM, first of all, is a big umbrella. It's a big umbrella, right? Under that umbrella, there's so many different activities and lifestyles and dynamics and relationships that exist within that umbrella, under the umbrella. So when people type in BDSM, all kind of shit pop up, and it's usually porn, right? And honestly, I'm not a person that's really drawn to porn. I never really liked porn, but I do like videos like with women in bondage. So unfortunately, that goes on the porn, right? But I look at that, that's just regular shit. But I like videos of women in bondage, or getting beaten and things like that. But it's not freak, okay? So save your jokes. Your wife is here? I've got 27 nieces and nephews and only spanked 2 of them. Yeah. It's crazy, and I feel like, yeah. When I have kids, I've already made my mind up, like, nah. There's different ways. I feel like being a great parent, I want to be able to be a great parent, like to master parenthood. And I feel like in order to master something, you have to be able to overcome challenges. I think the hardest challenge for a lot of parents is knowing how to discipline their children without putting hands on, because it's so easy to grab. Now, granted, if your child about to run out and dash out in the street, then that's out of necessity that you have to put your hands on them to save their life, right? That's different. We're not talking about that. But there are ways that you can discipline a child. And I think it starts early on, though. You got to catch it early on. I think that's why it's so important for a mother to be with a child for the entire first 5 years, right? Don't send them off to no freaking daycare, because there's so much that can be done within that span of time. You don't need to put hands on. You got to be strategic in how you interact with your child, and know that you, yes, as a parent, you really do have control. But at the same time, know that they have control too, though. And that they're a human being. They can think for themselves, right? To a certain extent. Like, I think it's all in how you see your child. Like, you have parents that look at children as, oh, they don't know anything. They don't know anything, right? Like, but they know a lot. And if you look at your child as just a replication of yourself and your partner that helped you to create that child, and if you think highly of yourself, right? I consider myself a genius. So my child gonna be genius, and I don't mind my child being smarter than me. And that's another issue. A lot of parents feel threatened by their children because their child know more than them. It's the truth. So you say the spanking that I was discussing was something that you haven't indulged in. Okay, well, you haven't indulged in. Don't mean that you should throw labels. Like, don't call people names. And, just say it's different. It's ways you can respond, because what you do, basically, when you start to say, oh, you're a freak, right? Now, you can say, okay, oh, that's freaky. Saying that's freaky is much different than saying you are a freak. Because when you're saying you are a freak, that has a negative connotation to it. Right? And then you begin to say things that may shut a person down. If you want a person to open up to say that they're freaky, you gotta think. Sometimes people just throw things out, and I get that you're being authentic in your response. But if we wanted to have a back and forth conversation, and you welcome me coming to you guys to talk to you guys more about topics like this, then calling somebody a freak, I don't think that's the best response. Oh, you say you did mention small story earlier. Oh, okay. You did mention. You got your tooth knocked out by your bro. Oh, wow. Yeah. See, people, we live some hard lives, man. We live some hard lives. And we so used to trauma, I think, as black people, we won't even look at it as trauma. We won't look at it like it's something wrong. It's a bad thing. Until we start to see, we wonder why. Like, why black people so fucked up? Why we got so many issues? A lot of that shit come from our own upbringing and not healing from it too. You know, not having the recognition by another person, right? Because you can know what you went through and come to an awareness of it, but not having that recognition from other people, like, oh, you know, sorry you went through that, right? Or even the person who did it to you owning up to it, like not having that closure, it's just like, that's a major part in it too, right? So perhaps when you think about the question with the guy sent the email, right, that prompted this video, it's just like, maybe it's just my way of getting closure. Because my mom would never freaking admit that she did anything wrong, yo. Ever. Okay? She taking that shit with her to her grave. Because that's how her mama raised her. And that's how she raised us. Right, to be uncontrolled and sexual. Sounds interesting. I would love to know more. I feel like, you know, there's ways that you can practice these activities like discipline spankings within the context of BDSM. And it can bring two people closer together. I feel like it brought me and like my ex very close. Like very intertwined and like intimate. You know, and so it's a good thing. Like, I'll be the first to be the proponent of, you know, BDSM and saying that it's okay. Sometimes that is how people reach a sense of healing, right? And then maybe at some point, after a while, after so many BDSM spankings, just like, man, I want to do this more. I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this in the first place? But I doubt it because it feels so good. But on that note, I'm going to catch you guys later. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm about to go grab me something to eat. See what is popping over here. It's kind of lit over here in my neighborhood. But feel free to drop your comments below respectfully, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for engaging in this very difficult conversation. But, I mean, it's relatable. A lot of people, I think, can identify with this. Some people just won't be honest enough to admit it. But I am. So that's just the kind of person I am. And that's what makes me a really great therapist, because I'm very transparent. But I'll catch you guys later. Keep it 100. Share this video.